Up.
Good morning, Catfish Conference. Our first presenter today is Epic Catfish, Tim Scott of the Epic Catfish YouTube channel. He's here to talk to us about big fish dynamics. Let's give Tim Scott a huge round of applause.
Yes.
All right, Tim,
Yep.
take it away.
Well, all right, everybody. I hope you're all as excited as I am because I've been thinking about this for the last month. I've been building props. I've been talking to Steve. I've been doing all this other stuff. And there's so much to talk about. I decided that I was going to talk about flatheads. If you like flatheads, raise your hand. Well, good. That's good. Most of the crowd likes flatheads. That's good because then I'd have to switch right back over to blues. But as you can tell, I created my own little piece of cover here, a tree. I've got some other things I'd like to show you. I've got some baits already hooked up, and we're going to talk about flathead rods a little bit. But mostly we're going to talk about big flatheads, where they live, and why they live there, and the interaction that they have. Because luckily, I've been studying flatheads and their behavior for close to 30 years because I've always been so excited about it. Even when I was little, the first flathead I got, I was like, I got to put it into a tank. And I had to realize that scientifically it's going to be a little bit different than a natural habitat. And then once I got older, I got bigger tanks that I could have current and have obstructions in the water and then see how they reacted with each other. That was some pretty cool stuff. In the beginning, I was just like everybody else. I didn't know much about where they lived, and I focused on rivers and lakes that I probably shouldn't have been focusing on because I didn't have any clue. You know, back in those days, there wasn't an internet, there wasn't this, there wasn't that. Somebody said, somebody caught a flathead in southern Illinois on this tiny little river, and I didn't really realize that flatheads are movers, but then again, they stay home. That's one of the things. So if you've got flatheads in your river, sometimes they're going to be deep, sometimes they're going to be shallow. And I hope to be able to kind of paint the picture of how that is. Now, we'll talk about some baits, sizes of baits, hooks, and things like that. But I'm not really a big gear guy, even though I've got a lot of gear. I don't like go around and say, okay, what's the best gear? It's out of necessity. I've kind of used what I've had. I have better gear now than I ever did. You know, years ago, there wasn't much to buy. You go to Walmart and the rod bends over like this in 3-mile-an-hour current. I had to stack 3 ounces of egg sinkers like this to get it down there. But with flatheads, I don't usually have to use that much weight. As long as I'm not using a huge bait, because the current is so different between catching fish like this one. If I want to catch fish like this, I'm going to angle more towards 40 foot of water, 50, 60 foot of water. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mile an hour current. Now you're going to need some big, what we call donkey weights to get that bait down. But if I'm targeting something like this, and albeit this is a giant, so I would refer more to catfish like what I've got displayed on the that's more of a, this is a once every 5 years type size fish for me. So there's some times or some places where fish this big don't exist. They just don't. But at least you can be able to figure out how you're going to go about it. So let me play a video, and I assume there's a lot of YouTubers out here, and you've probably seen this, but it's a short video. And then we'll talk about this very situation. Oh, yeah.
One of the most important things about looking at a private spot like this is that you have to take notice of how the current's moving into this, how close to the main hole you are, and what time of year it is. I still like the spot. Oh, that's fine. Did you see that? We got this straight.
I love the takedowns too.
Oh my God.
All right, so the most exciting thing to me about this video isn't the production. It's not, I mean, yes, I love it. I love the takedown, I love the chase, I love the hunt, but that spot, it's a rare thing. I mean, if you look at that, it's so diverse. And what I couldn't show you in 3 minutes was what was all around it. For 100 yards each direction, for 500 yards, maybe even a mile, there wasn't much that looked that great. Sean and I spent a lot of time looking because this was in a whole new area that we'd never fished before. And so one of the things that we do, and maybe this will work on your home waters, is back a long time ago, I would look at a spot, think, man, this looks good, and spend time on it and not do very well. It wasn't until I started fishing spots for flatheads that were singular spots. Maybe they're diverse, but it wasn't like 100 yards of deep water wood and this and that. I had to figure out how I was going to single out big flatheads as opposed to your regular flatheads. So I started looking at it systematically. I started saying, okay, if I've got 150 yards of wood coming off the bank and it comes out 6, 7, 8 feet and plummets down to 25, looks great. But how am I going to target an individual fish with limited amount of time? And that's one thing I don't think anybody has too much of today, is very much time. So we got to get our baits, we got to get our boats, we got to get to the river, and we got to spend that time. So how are you going to maximize your time throwing into particular spots that you have a good inkling that there's going to be a big flathead there? So let's talk about that. One of the best times to do it is pre-spawn. And pre-spawn, in my experience, is way different than the rest of the year, because big males start to set up on locations that females find attractive. So it's all real estate. It has nothing to do, because a flathead really doesn't, and in my experience, seeing them interact, a flathead doesn't know how big it is, even if it's only this big or it's this big. Now, once they get that big, they're kind of convinced that they're kind of top cat, if you want to get that. But if you have and fishing day after day after day is one of the things that's helped me figure this out. Because if I find a spot that I traditionally catch bigger fish, 25 and above, 50 and above, things like that, and I go back to it, and I go back to it, and I go back to it. I go back to it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever. Once you catch a fish, sometimes they will still be there, because I caught a fish on Tuesday, and I won't catch a fish sometimes on Wednesday. And then after a day or so, I may catch that same fish. But also, once I take that fish off of that piece of cover, that prime area, there may be another one that shuffles in and takes its place. Now, if I throw to the perimeter, and if anybody has looked at this situation right here, let me describe this, and we all have to use our imaginations, and that's one thing that catfishermen are great at, using our imaginations, because I mean, we can't see underneath the water, we have to guess about things, we have to prove ourselves right or prove ourselves wrong if we're going to be consistently good. So about here where this chair is, if we can imagine right in here, that's the shore, and it's kind of dipping down into maybe even 10 feet. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. In my experience of catching big flatheads for 30 years, well, more 25 years. My first 5 years was terrible. I mean, terrible. Doing all the same stupid stuff, not knowing where I was going, throwing the wrong baits. My tackle wasn't that great, and I did contact some monsters, but most of them were kind of incidental. But after that, I started being able to look at a good swath of water, not 20 miles. I go to a boat ramp. I'm going to kind of look at a map. I'm going to see how that current flows, and I'm going to see where baits are being directed. I'm going to see where big flatheads can hide. They love to hide, whether it's underneath margins, whether it's underneath trees, whether it's underneath rocks, bridge abutments, things like that. But let's just say this tree right here, a week ago, I caught great fish on it because the current was nice and gentle. It was kind of flowing along the bank, kind of moving in there. And then all of a sudden the river drops. I know already not to even fish it because I've done it because I'm hard-headed. Anybody in here hard-headed? It's to our detriment, but sometimes it's our greatest asset. So being hard-headed like I was, I'd say, okay, I caught a 50 there last week. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to catch a 50 again. But if that current subsides, it will actually move fish off cover, except in the month of June where I live. Now, it will still pull them off if that current drops drastically. But they're just as stubborn as we are. So even if that current subsides quite a bit in the month of June, and that is what I call the pre-spawn, that's the 30 days before the actual spawn where I live in the middle of Illinois, because July 4th kind of marks the weekend where the spawn's pretty much over. So I can predict in the month of June. May, it's a little bit more tough, but by the time that first weekend in June comes around, it's pretty darn predictable. And that's a great thing, especially for us stubborn people. We go, okay, that's exactly where I'm going to fish. I'm going to move here, and I'm going to move there, and I'm going to catch, I'm going to catch 10 flatheads today. Who goes on the water and promises themselves they are going to catch 10 flatheads in one day? Does it happen? A lot. All right. Now, I'm lucky. I've got a river, which is the Mississippi. It's got a good flathead population. It also has commercial fishing. Trust me on that one. The populations aren't just so incredible I can go anywhere because there's lots of water that I can go and you won't even get a bite because they just don't live there. The population's not that heavy. But once I learn the principles of what I'm talking to you about, I could go out there and average 10 fish a trip in the month of June every time. And they're going to be everything from 5 pounds if I choose to fish perimeter location, if I choose to throw cut bait out. And let me describe this. So I kind of brought this, and it's kind of like half of one side of my boat. So if I'm going to target, say, a tree like this, there's only so many rods I can throw into it. Like I can take this one, I kind of know where the tree is, and I can kind of hit it close. I can put that, just like in that video. So I put some on the perimeter a little bit, then I go into the core of it, what I imagine is the deepest, and then I'll work on the periphery of it. Now, the one thing that this video didn't show, because it's only 3 minutes, is that where the boat was, just up from us, was a nice drop. So it's 4 foot of water, then it drops off almost like this, drops off 2 feet. When they're active, they'll come out of that wood and position. Let me get that. Here we go. Let's get the big one. All right, so Mr. Flathead here, if he needs food and he's protecting this spot against all the other ones, and all of a sudden there's not too much food coming in, they will move up in the middle of the day, and sometimes they'll sit on a drop at the bottom of it, Sometimes they'll sit just like that, believe that or not. I've seen it in my tanks. I've noticed it when I move into a spot and I catch a fish within a minute, because the back of the boat might be here. And then I've got a rod holder up here that I basically put straight down. And if that fish hits that within 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, I know he was already there. Because flatheads don't, unless you absolutely hit them on the lips, that's pretty uncommon. They don't just strike like a bass, in my experience. Now, there's no absolutes in fishing, and I talk a little bit matter-of-factly. So hopefully you don't get the idea that this is the only way it happens, but this is the way it happens when I fish. So if I've got one fish staged from the deeper cover up into the shallow, especially located at drops, I go, maybe that's what I need to look for. So my next anchor, I'm going to set it up a little different. Maybe I'm targeting cover and not having that great. So now I'm going to start backing off from the cover. I'm still going to launch some stuff like over where Kevin is. I'm going to launch one, get fairly close to the cover, but then I'm going to start targeting these drops. So every single anchor is an experiment, and I'm listening to the fish. So if I listen to the fish and they're telling me that they're off in the side pockets, like I may be targeting wood here, but then maybe there's an island, and then maybe there's some current coming this way, and there's a little bit of a drop that you can't really target because they're just kind of loosely targeted, loosely sitting there. I'm going to take something like this with a live bait or cut bait, and I'm going to throw it completely sideways. That sounds weird for a flathead fisherman, doesn't it? Raise your hand if you think that's weird. Cross current, 90 degrees. And until I started doing that, it upped my catch rate by 20, 30%. And on some days, this is the route that gets hit all day for some reason. But the one thing that a catfisherman can't worry about is, are you throwing your stuff away? If you're worried about losing rings, might as well stay home with flatheads. Now, when I blue catfish, I hardly lose a rig. But flatheads, I might lose. And it depends on how willing they are to bite. Everybody knows that we, as flathead fishermen, have thrown into wood that flatheads exist and you can't get them to bite. And we know this because when we usually start out an anchor, maybe I'll have the baits up from that piece of wood. They know it's there because their detection zone is big. Bigger the flathead, the bigger their detection zone. And detection zone means they can smell it. They can feel the vibrations. You can sit a half an hour and he won't come out of that spot that I had him in. Now I got to say, okay, all right, Sean, it's time to go in after him. And we know we're going to lose stuff. We're going to lose some stuff. We're going to lose some baits. We're going to lose some hooks. We're going to lose some whatever. But as long, and I just kind of keep inching it forward. If I get it close enough to his face, on a lot of days, they'll bite it. And you're like, yes. But on those days that they're unwilling to come out, you don't see bites like you did in that video. You see, let me demonstrate that. Don't watch me, watch the rod. So when that fish moves up, you might have your live bait like this. Maybe it's wiggling around, Wish I had a nickel for every customer I had that's like, no, bite. I'm like, no, it's just a big live bait. You can tell by the vibration, and then maybe it'll pause a little bit. But when you see this on an aggressive bite, boom, that is when that fish just sucked that bait in. He took his mouth and closed like this. They don't go up and eat it like this. They just inhale, and the bigger they are, they might suck in 5 gallons of water, and that bait's with them. Now, here's one thing, phantom bites. So you got a fairly lazy flathead, comes in, and he goes, boom, he hits it, but there's no back end to it, right? Pick up the rod, he's not there, but you know it was a bite. That's because sometimes they're so inactive, they wait 10 minutes to move to the bait, they take a shot at it, and because it's on a line, it only goes so far. Let me stand up here. So here's your bottom, here's your bait. He inhales and it goes, and it stops. Because the bigger the flathead, the farther farther away they can strike. And I've seen them with my own eyes, inhaling baits from 12 inches away, many times. And a lot of times, that's the only amount of effort they're going to spend. That's it. You've done had your shot. And you're like, oh, you know, big fish, it misses. Now, we don't always know they're big fish because little fish will come up, suck bait in, move, spit it out. Raise your hand if you ever had that. You're like, oh my gosh, pick up the rod and it drops it. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain. The advent of circle hooks was great. It's fantastic. And I really wasn't sure about it because I was a big J-hook guy years ago. I was like, man, how, you know, a lot of times flatheads don't pull it. So I started using a modified circle hook that we can literally set the hook on if we need to. So we get that hit, boom, it starts to load up. There's two ways that we handle it. Sometimes you pick it up right out of the rod holder because that initial hit is the best shot you're going to get. But I got to listen to the fish, and luckily I have lots of shots at them. If I only have one or two shots, I don't know anything. But if I'm running on my milk run and I've contacted a bunch of flatheads, that day I need to be able to figure out how to handle myself so that I can hook flatheads. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's frustrating. You might go one out of 10 bites, 1 out of 20 bites. And when they're grouped up, when you get a basin hole situation and they have a lot of competition, there's a lot of flatheads in there. And just say this whole group of people right here, like in May, sometimes I'll go into an area and there's as many flatheads in an area that there is people, but I can only get 10% of them to bite. I've already marked them. I've looked at that location. I see the drops. They've moved up. They're just kind of sitting there placid. And all of a sudden you get whop, and then nothing, whop, nothing, nothing. Eat the squeaker, nothing. And you reel your stuff back in, and right here, your live baits or your cut baits, they're scaled on one side, not on the other. Now, that's how you know they're not channel cats, because channel cats have powerful jaws. When they bite anything, they're going to munch down on it. Usually it's crushed. With flatheads, they're fairly gentle. They suck it in with extreme power, but they don't have a bunch of bite pressure this way. All their pressure, all their power is suction. And they bite each other, they suck right onto them. I mean, they close their gills like this, and they've got a big piece of flesh, and they'll drive them out of their areas. They usually grab them in the side area, blah, blah, blah. That's another story. Let's talk about fishing. So now all of a sudden we're in a basin hole a little bit before pre-spawn, when they're basically just waking up from the winter period. They're generally docile, water temperature still a little bit low, and then you get on a spot and you get a shot at 20 fish, and it's very frustrating. So as soon as you start noticing, especially on your live baits, at least this is what I do. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. But when I see that I've got bite marks on my live baits, I'm going to immediately switch a couple rods over to cut bait, because it seems for some reason 20, 30, 40, 50% of the time that these flatheads will accept cut baits when they're not really accepting live baits. Sometimes they're just on all of it. When they're active, everybody can catch fish, right? You ever been where you stand behind a tree to bait your hook and you're like, this is the greatest day of the world. It's awesome. Everything's going down. But most of the time, that's not the case with flatheads. So let me go back to this and let me see. And the way I react to a bite is going to make a big difference whether I hook up on them or not. Now, if I'm expecting that thing to just load up, most time for me it doesn't happen because I'm doing it during the day, going to where they live. They don't have to go far. So what I have to do is I have to pick this rod up. Do not let him know that I'm there. I do not, but if there's a whole bunch of pressure to it, I can't do this technique. But if he pops it and just barely loads it up, I can pick the rod holder straight up like this, and I'll disengage it, believe it or not, and I'll let that line out. And if he'll swim, as long as there's not a lot of pressure, I go down with it till I get to the point where I call it the shotgun. So you're almost to the shotgun stage. And with a circle hook, I'll either sweep right, sweep left, or sometimes you'll even watch it. We stand here, I'll actually back up and just kind of change the angle of the line a little bit and then raise it up. And most of the time it's on. Now, sometimes there's nothing you can do. We all know that. But we've looked at how to target them. Let me get this situation back, because I'm not going to use this. My seminar tomorrow is going to be all about giant blues. So we're going to try to cover as much flathead stuff as we can. All right. So as a generic situation, this is generally, if you can see underwater, this is pretty much as true as I could make it and make an example. But you got to imagine this tree being 5 times as big and this space being farther apart. Because this flathead, if he is protecting this area, this one is going to bite the dickens out of this because he's too close. But if you can imagine this tree being, instead of 8 feet long, being 16 feet long, as long as I got a big enough space, this fish can live here, but he wants to live here. But he can't, because this fish is going to make this one sorry he was ever alive. And we catch them all the time, giant bite marks. I've caught fish this big with throw pads dug into them all the way up here by the dorsal. 25-pound fish, 30-pound fish, 40-pound fish that has literally been completely inside the mouth of another one, all the way up past here. Sometimes it's the tail. You never know exactly until you see the telltale pad marks, because that's what those pads are designed to do. The pads are designed, and you see them when you open the mouth. They're designed to grip on to whatever it's swallowed that's really big and help it come down the throat. Now, are they necessarily trying to eat them? I'd have to ask one, but most of the time I think they're just trying to teach them a lesson. Okay, so now we've determined that, and one of the hardest things to do is to describe the right current. Because to me, in the equation, that is the most important thing. So let me try to describe it. When you throw your weight and your bait, and a lot of the spots that I fish, I don't see anybody else fishing because the top current looks like it's too much. It's flowing about this fast. I mean, sometimes this fast. But if I can get where I throw the bait, because I look at the bottom and the bottom looks great, looks like it's going to hold flatheads. Maybe I'll mark a flathead or two, which is kind of rare. But I'll go into that area, I'll throw a bait out, and I'll thumb that spool, and I'll count it down, and I'll hold it and go, yeah, it's got a lot of pressure. Oh, it just let up. 5, 6 feet off the bottom, 2, 3 feet off the bottom. That's all they need. They don't love fast current, but they like that gentle current. They like to be next to fast current. Because, little Johnny Baitfish, he's just kind of coming along. Oh, I made a mistake, and it's lights out, done. They'll hit those little ledges, and they'll move on those little current seams. And they will, especially, and flatheads love to lay against rock. You know what, let's do this too, because this is, although this is classic as well. How many of y'all fish stuff like that? Big root balls kind of sticking up out of the water a little bit. It's got the current pushing into it. It's one of my favorites because it's so predictable and so easy. It's not easy. Nothing's easy about flatheads, but compared, it's pretty easy. So you're going along down the river, and maybe it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet of water, and somewhere near the bank, you got one big tree that fell in the water. And maybe this is sticking up. And it's only 4 foot of water, but yet it's next to deep water. And the current's moving through it, and it's creating current breaks, and it's creating shade during the day. So inactive, they'll sit under it. But they still know if this bait is out here wiggling, is it sending stuff, or it's bloody, recently cut, whatever. So you have to imagine some things, but as a location that this thing is basically staying away from the sun, he's just kind of waiting his time out, and maybe he'll get active, maybe he won't. But sometimes if you can get it close enough to them, sometimes they'll come out. They'll come out this far. Because I don't usually just throw baits right into wood. Take the first 5, 6, 7 minutes, and I'm going to throw on this side, I'm going to throw on that side. And one thing that's true, and you can see it when the water recedes and you see a situation like this, there's almost always a little bumpy, scour right in front of that big, and the root ball might be 10 feet across, big soft maple, big cottonwood, whatever. But because that current pushes into that root ball, it'll scour out a hole in the front. And then pretty soon, that's that same situation we got. So a flathead can lay there all day on the front. Oh, jeez, I got so much stuff, I feel like a robot. So it can sit either down in the hole, or it can perch its big, giant, jutting jaw right on that clay ledge. And baitfish don't even know he's there. That's another thing. As long as we want to talk a little bit about biology, flatheads are the most stealthy freshwater fish that I've ever witnessed. They have thick slime coat for several reasons, but one of them is when scaly baitfish are moving, wiggling around, they send sound signals. They can detect their own sound signals. So if they're swimming up next to rocks, or just say a hard-bodied fish is chasing, they kind of know it because they've given off signals and it's coming back. But a flathead, it's stealth technology. It's almost exactly like what we got going with our stealth airplanes. So radar gets absorbed. Sound gets absorbed by the thickness of the skin, and it's soft. It's kind of soft, even though they're big, strong creatures. So they have a huge advantage. Then let's talk about the light change. That's another big biological advantage. So Sean and I, when we're on the water, we get the most excited hour before dark. Anybody else? Anybody else notice that's kind of like a magic hour? So being a success-oriented, driven, crazy, catfish psycho, savage, I'll do anything to go catch a giant fish because I am addicted to it. I've always been addicted to it. So what I do is I'm going to survey. Just say I go to a river that I've never been to before. I'm going to keep in my mind what I've seen all day. I'll rarely get to the river an hour before dark because that's go time. I mean, it's go time. So I'll take a look at as much of the river as I can feasibly look at in a day's time or 4 hours. And I'm going to make a mental note. And I'm going to talk to Sean because now I'm old. I do remember every place I've ever caught a fish of note still, but I'm sure that'll leave me at some point. So I say, Sean, we got to come here. We got to come back here after dark. We're like, oh boy, this looks good. This looks good. And we're feeling good. We're like, oh yeah, we got to make sure, but we got to go look at this other place. And we got to look at this other place. Say, okay, we got 15 minutes left. We got to go. We got to get on that spot. We got to deploy our baits. We got to hope for the best. And a lot of times it's not necessarily just hope. It's, and I used to call it this, almost willing the fish to bite. It's the weirdest thing ever. You go, okay, I can get into a spot, I can deploy my baits, but if I just sit there doing nothing, sometimes it doesn't happen. Here's one of the biggest keys, and it's so simple that I've learned in the last probably 15 years. Throw that bait out, and it's tumbled along the bottom, right? Boom, 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 and it found something, and it sits there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's time for me to be proactive. So I'm going to pull that. I'm going to reel that a little bit. I'm going to get that thing bumping again. Because maybe, I mean, if I cast it close to fish, they know it's there. It's just not close enough. Because a bite, the detection zone and the strike zone are two different things. And it varies. The detection zone doesn't vary. It seems that a fish of 4 foot length, to me, can detect something 15, 20 feet ahead of it in current. Because sound waves get transferred in current in directional situations. 3 to 4 feet out to the sides and only a few feet behind them. Because you got current carrying sound waves, it's coming to them. If you're directly in line, it's a great signal. If you're a little bit to the side, it's not so great of a signal. If you're behind them, it's a terrible signal. So I want to not only have that flat hit, know that that bait is there, I want him to maybe be irritated by it. I want him to be bothered by it. I want him to, come on, fish, you are going to bite this thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move things. And I've been on live shows where people in the comments, and I love everybody in the comments, but they're like, man, he can't even sit down for a minute. No, because I'm focused. I'm looking at these rods. I'm trying to get things in the right situation because I can't see what's there. I have to try to remember it. So Big Mike right there. Maybe I marked a fish where Big Mike is directly over it, but I marked fish over here. I may cast over here, but it may be so far off of where Big Mike is, I'm going to have to recast. And I'm going to have to make sure, and here's another kind of a cool thing about it. A lot of you are probably saying, okay, if I throw sideways the current, all it's going to do is whip this way and be behind the boat anyway. True, if you don't do what I'm about to show you. All right, so I'm going to overhand cast this if I had a tall ceiling, but now I'm just going to throw it out. Okay, so if that's cross current, that thing, and if I just lock it in and put it in the holder and expect it to stay, if it does stay, it's a guaranteed loss because it's hooked up so hard and I've got a tight line. So if you watch my videos when I throw out to the side, and trust me, the side thing is responsible for a lot of big fish. I will strip off line and line and line because like an anchor, whoa, like an anchor, yep, don't anybody get snagged on it. But literally, this is what my line looks like. Because I need that bait, I need that weight to dig in, but not dig in so hard it just has to find something or blow behind the boat. Now, that also seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because how are you going to know if there's a bite, if it's that loose? Well, trust me, you do. It's different. So when we get bites like that, especially on Sean's side of the boat, I go, Sean, and there's a fish right there. And he's like, what, where, huh? Did it again. All right. He says, what, where? And all you see is this. Bang, maybe. And then the famous dribble. So the famous dribble just looks like this on the end of your rod. Now I've got 30 yards of slack because I'm using that like an anchor. Fish has picked it up. We don't know what direction he's going. We don't know whether he's going that way, this way, or just back. Most of the time they just go back. So it's like this. And with circle hooks, it's a great thing because you're not going to, I mean, if the fish is active enough, it's going to hold on to it pretty good. I just pick it up. I'm going to reel like this until I feel a little bit of pressure. And then I'm going to set the hook on two stands. Hold on to it. I'm just going to sweep it. It's a nice gentle sweep and just keep reeling. And most of the time that fish is on, whether it's flatheads or blues. Channel cat's a little different story. They're a little pecky. All right, get this back. Okay, so, yep, I lost my bait once again. So, let's get back to this root ball situation. So, I was describing earlier that sometimes they'll come out, but what if they don't come out? I may have to get a different angle at that. I'm going to go in superior angle first. That's what I say my most likely situation. I'm going to try to fish with the fish like they're active, like they're going to come out, they're going to pound a bait and go down and everything's going to be great. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. So boat positioning for me is a huge key, huge. So if I'm not getting any success on one in 15 minutes, because that's usually about the length, the longevity of whether I get results or whether I don't. I may decide to say, okay, I need to get my boat against the bank. I need to go over here to that tree and target with the left rods the side of it. Now, I will rarely choose to throw over it. I've had people on my boat that do. It never works because you're immediately snagged up. Now, true, just like in the other, that most of the small fish in this situation, and this, I wouldn't classify this as a small fish, but if I have my heart set on 50s, I'm not all excited about this, even though it's a great fish. But most of the time, these are going to be what I call satellite fish. Bam. They love the tops. And if you've watched anybody watch Muddy River catfishing? Excellent. Believe it or not, little fish will, for some reason, hover in the middle of it, up high. How do you target those? I've only done it a few times. It's kind of frustrating, but you guys that are into bumping and jigging and running your trolling motor and stuff like that, I've done it. I usually anchor. I'll get above a giant brush pile and I'm marking fish in between it and just basically straight up and down, move the boat a little bit, but yet I'm not gonna move stuff fast. I'll move stuff slow, and I've caught 50-pounders doing it, 10 feet off the bottom, up in the branches, done it. But it's not something I have to go to very much. Bite's gotta be really tough for me to decide to do that. All right, so how much time we got? 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. Anybody got any questions on what I've said so far?
You start talking about the light change and that light change. What does that light change do to that fish? Does that
Great question.
Wake them up? Is it their time?
What was the question?
Well, let me get up close to Sean and then everybody can hear him.
Here, I got you.
Okay. You were gonna see me get right up at Sean like this.
Be close.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were going to talk about the light change and I started getting that feeling because a lot of success now light change and for other fishing. What exactly is going wrong here? What is that? Exactly when the flathead finally says, okay, it's time to put high heat. That's exactly the prime time to start feeding.
Of course, Heroes does one of the simple questions, but it's probably one of the greatest questions in flathead fishing because it's kind of a mystery. Do they move or don't they move after dark? Do they get up and start hunting around and prowling around? Do they sit there because they're in a great situation and they don't ever have to move? Are they going to move a long way or short ways? And all of that is true. Every bit of everybody's suspicions on what flatheads do at night, you're dead on. Not 100% of the time. Even, when I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I cannot predict whether the flatheads in this tree that I haven't been able to get bite during the day, that as soon as it gets dark, that they're going to move, one, or they're going to move towards me. They might move downstream. They might move this way, and they might move that way. That's a lot of ways. But the only thing I can do is do what I've always done and be stubborn, right? So I'm going to have to deploy baits and try to head these things off the pass. I may change my location after dark. I may fish tight to the cover, but once it gets dark and I don't get any bites, I have to try to assume that they moved. So if they moved, now I got to go find where they moved to, or I have to predict. Because last night, if they moved and I proved it to myself, I'm going to have to go to where a neck down is. I'm going to have to go where it funnels. Maybe there's an area that's too impressive to even fish because it's so snaggy with high wood. How many guys fish rivers with gigantic, what are those trees that sink? Well, anyway, there's a couple trees that just sink like a rock. And they're on the rivers. And I've been in a situation where you've got a 30-foot shelf that comes from the bank almost straight down. Maybe it's an island and it's all caved in like this. And you'll have 500 yards of trees that are sticking up way up. And there's tons of giant catfish in there. But as soon as you hook one and it gets in that high wood, you're like, oh, it's going. That was going. That was going. That was going. I did it. I know. Stupidly, I did it, dumbly, but stubbornly, I kept trying to do it. And I'm like, you know what? I got to find a different situation on this. So if that bank comes down like this, nice, good ledge, good current going through it, you got massive trees, giant sticks sticking up, and you're marking fish in between it. You know you're doing it. Sometimes you can go to the outside of it, just in that little travel route, because that's going to have slower current through the trees, and it's going to have like a little travel route. You got to get lucky. And you can't just keep lined up with it. I can't. I have to get out in the main current and do this thing again. And then let it drag and get caught along there. And sometimes that's very successful. Sometimes all I can do is go up ahead of it to where it clears off. That's, in Fisherman 101. Find a snag, see where it's kind of clean, come up, deploy your baits, and hope for the best. The other option in a scenario like that is for me to go forget that noise. I love that spot, but I got to forget about it. I have to just clip it off the bottom of my list. Done. I know there's big fish there, but I know they're not coming out. We've already tried it today, so we're going to have to go to areas like what we showed you on the film. We're going to have to go to shallower water. That's another thing. I've been hearing for years about giant flatheads in deep water. And I've been trying it for years, where I fish on the Mississippi, up by the Quad Cities. It's not a super deep river. Probably average channel is probably 17. You'll find 25, 30-foot holes. You'll find areas of extreme current, middle current, and slow current. You'll find backwaters. You'll find secondary, tertiary channels. You'll find all that kind of stuff. You're going to find soft maples and everything laying down in the water. You're going to find places that don't hold anything but carp and gar. But 10% of the water holds flatheads, about 10%. And if you could scan the whole river, you're going to fish in areas that are subpar, it's going to be a rough day. But if you can go to specific, what we call the epic donkey waters, and put and deploy stuff out, you might have a great day. But I'm going to have to decide that, and all of you are going to have to decide that. Do you do what you always do, or do what you always did, or you try something new today? Is it going to frustrate you? Probably. For every time I try to do something new, it frustrates me, but I have to look at all the angles. I have to look at, okay, what was that situation? I have to try to remember, what was the weather? What was the current? What was the depth? And now I've got it memorized where I can get on the internet, look at the current and say, okay, 9.5 to 12, it's in the flathead range on all of my good spots that hold big fish like that. So I go, I'm going to that pool and we're going to knock some flatheads. Now, if I get there and they decided to not go with their prediction and I see that water went whoop like that, I might go, Sean, we're going down or we're going up, or maybe we're going 4 hours south. I mean, we've driven 1,000-mile weekends just in the state of Illinois because we get there and it's not what they said it was going to be. We get there and it's tough. We get there and the rain set in. I mean, a whole host of things. But we switch from flatheads to blues and from blues to flatheads. Just because I understand it doesn't mean I can always make it happen. But through sheer perseverance, usually at the last hour, we end up catching some monsters. And then we do the dance, the catfish dance, and we hug and we jump up and down and we do a little film and whatever, and that's great. But trust me, there's days when it's you're long in the face because almost no matter what you do works. And one of the cool things about YouTube is that I've been able to actually see with my own eyes when a bite goes south, especially with the blues. For some reason, and this is just a new phenomenon, I mean, I'd always been in contact with good catfishermen across the country. And they say, oh, the bite's terrible. Bite's terrible on the East Coast. Bite's terrible in the middle. It's terrible on the West Coast. Terrible up north, terrible down south. And it seems to go in a cycle like this. So how do we predict that we're not going to choose our valuable time to go fishing and have it be terrible? There's only one way I've figured out to do it, and that's to look at the history. So you get on the USGS site, look at what the water's been doing. Let's just say it was 21 4 days ago, and it dipped hard, 14. I don't want to go there. I don't like this. I don't mind this. or it's jumping up a little bit and staying and maybe falling a little bit, maybe rising a little bit. I don't like hard rises and I don't like hard falls. It's not because I don't like it. I don't care what the water is, but I can't convince the catfish to like it. Because I can't. Now, there's no absolutes in fishing. I have been to volatile situations where we catch big fish, but it's not usually one of those epic, monumental, awesome. We caught 10 fish over 30 pounds and 2 of them were over 40 and one of them was over 50 and you catch a 65. I don't generally get that when that water is volatile. But if I can get a week of decent water flow, we know the bite's on. That's almost a shoe-in. So we start high-fiving the stuff when we get in the truck to drive 4 hours because we're like, oh yeah, it's going to be on because it's been level and it's awesome. And usually that rings true. So that is one way to maximize your time, with blues, flatheads, or channel cats. So if you have a choice, now the best thing to do is go fishing when you have time. I mean, that's it. Sometimes some of us, we don't have much time. I mean, I used to have more time than I have now. Now I can only fish weekends. So now I'm kind of stuck. But if I can put a trip, especially an expensive, time-eating trip, I see that they're going, that they have crashed it or it's risen hard, I'll be like, Sean, let's go next week. And usually we're pretty smart because I've almost always got a buddy or two that went to the river anyway. And they're like, that was the most miserable bite that I've ever seen, in the last, month or year or whatever. So that is one big thing. All right, any other questions? You got the mic?
Yeah, a while ago you were talking about using a sweeping motion, either left or right, or with the shotgun with a set hook.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any luck, or do you do that because you haven't had luck, just reeling down on them like you put a blue or?
Oh, you can reel down on them. There's no doubt. I mean, that's a classic one. I usually talk about the things that, because I hate to, we're going to have so many seminars that reel down method is going to be talked about 100 times. So I'm trying to do that.
When you're trying to feel the fish,
yes.
You have a lot of
right.
sweeping.
Yes. It is very difficult.
Reel down when you get the takedown.
Yes.
That's definitely fish on.
Yes. Yeah. When and that's really the only time we do the reel down is when we get the hit, the rod's bowed, it's going down, and you're too impatient to just let it set the hook itself. I mean, it is. And the first experience that I had with flatheads and circle hooks was really kind of eye-opening because I was fishing the Rock River. It's October, and everybody knows in the middle of Illinois, it's kind of touch and go whether they're going to be active or whether they're not going to be active. And I just happened to hit a day that they were because they were grouped up in their pre-wintering phase in the deeper basin holes, and I just started shucking baits. I was actually helping a film crew film for a show. I was kind of like the key grip, if you get what I mean, kind of like the hand, figuring out what's going on, getting all this stuff and helping out with the, and so here I was on the Rock River, so I might as well fish. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna throw these circle hooks, and I just started throwing them. And luckily that day I ended up catching 7 flatheads because they were moving, and they were moving for me and they were moving for him. You didn't have to target anything, you just throw it out because they were shifting and shuffling around in these holes and finding your baits. And we know this because none of the fish just bit it and stayed. They all went. So I was sold on circle hooks, and that was kind of a thing. Yes, Kevin.
From YouTube, Laughing Catfishing asked, what's the single greatest mistake that an angler makes when chasing monster flatheads?
Drowning. That would be the biggest one, but I mean, because and let's face it. I mean, I don't talk a lot about safety because I'm not a big safety advocate. Y'all know what you need to do. I fish dangerous stuff. I'll throw it. We'll go through 3 inches of water, all this other stuff because I've never felt that fortune ever benefited this safety move. I tell my kids when they're, I'm like, dude, you're playing safety ball. You got to move. You got to range out. You got to get new experiences, but you got to do it safely. I'm not a big fan for myself of wearing life jackets because I used to be a certified lifeguard. I used to be a great swimmer. I could rescue Kevin out of the river in 4-mile-an-hour current. But now I'm 52 and I get a little winded. So now I'm like, yeah, I want to put on a life jacket when I need to. I'm going to make sure to be aware of things. I mean, on the Mississippi River, just even last year, we had a 30-foot log try to come down and sink our boat. I mean, you have to be aware. You gotta have a plan, a contingency plan, so that you don't die. But let me get back to laughing cast. The single biggest mistake is to pretty much go to an area and expect fish to do what you want them to do. That's the thing. That's going to happen once in a while. Just because July 4th in 1985, you whooped up on this bend in 30-foot of water doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Because catfish behavior and location can change day to day and hour to hour. And that is one of the mantras that I've kept in my head for the last 30 years. Because if I started trying to predict what all these fish are going to do, let me talk to you about one spot that we have done lives on YouTube. It's a bridge. It's a big, 10 minutes. I'll say this really fast. It's a bridge, one of the greatest flathead spots I've got on my river. Okay, it's an old railroad bridge. And as so happens, the Corps of Engineers or whoever built it years ago put it just at the right angle on the river. It's not straight in line with the current, it's just a little cocked. And so it creates this giant current break of only about 12 foot, 13, 14 foot of flat water, flat nothing. What you can see is not impressive. What you can't see is impressive because these flatheads live in this bridge. Live in the nooks and the crannies, and they come out at night. And sometimes it's a little fish spot. The big fish are almost always there, especially if water's been high for a while. It will gather an amount of fish. The higher the water for a longer period of time, and then it gets fishable, you'll have more fish. If it's been low for a long time, they tend to spread out. But if you get it at the right time, but if I expected that to happen every single time and wasted my time, which I have done that. It's one of the worst things I've ever done. I expected to catch big flatheads where I had caught them last week and the month before and all that, and I wasted all my time, and all I needed to do was go a mile over and a mile down because a buddy of mine did it. And he went to that situation, and I didn't. And that situation was fire. But I thought I could shoe in a great big bite because of the way the current had been. The current had been up for a long time, and I thought it should have been there. I thought the bite should have been there. So we got creosote on the boat by tying up to the bridge, and we spent all of our time and all of our baits, and we caught some dinks like this. But that buddy of mine caught 4 fish, and 3 of them were over 50, and all he did was just spot hop that. And that's what I should have done. So that is the biggest mistake. Thinking that you know what's going on without listening to the fish and then sticking with your plan and failing.
Before I take another one from the internet, anybody in the crowd have another question? Okay, from Facebook, Todd Dalton asks, is there a time of year to switch from big baits to smaller baits for flatheads?
Generally speaking, for me, there is. Now, I know some of you, and everybody here fishes varied situations. I mean, I see guys from YouTube, some of them are fishing, we got the Snake River, we got the Tennessee River, we got the Mississippi, we got the James, we got all these different rivers. So if you're going to target flatheads, a general rule for me, and I've fished them on all those rivers except the Snake River. That's a little far for me, but my general rule is pre-spawn smaller fish, smaller baits, heavy cover, smaller baits. Because what I don't want to have happen is I do not want to throw a side bait for one that's too big. So this would be too big for what I would consider something I need to throw out to the side. Okay, so I would want something that's maybe a live fish that's 4 or 5, and it depends on the current, but I don't want a giant 12-inch white bass throwing at that, because all it's going to do is pick my sinker up and wrap around something, and the flathead's going to hit it, get my bait, and not eat for a week. That's the other problem about flatheads. Flatheads do not have to eat every day. They don't have to eat every 3 days. The colder the water, the less they have to eat. the higher the water, the more they have to eat, but they still don't have to. And let me, just to give you an example, I kept flatheads and blues in a tank throughout the cold water period a couple of years in a row. I was doing some other scientific studies. And when I kept flatheads in there, I could feed them a finite amount of baits. And anything under 40, 50 degrees, they really didn't eat that much. Keep blues in that same situation, and they'll eat 3, 4, 5 times as much. Channel keats will eat half. Their digestion is slow. They're more like a turtle or a snake in their digestive system. So the warmer the water, since they're cold-blooded, they their stomach contents get done and out of there, and they're ready to eat again. But if you the colder the water, I generally tend to pick baits for flatheads that are 4 or 5 inches. Now I'll almost always throw out a big giant donkey bait because it's exciting. Let's face it. If you get a flathead on a bait this big, that's awesome. But most of the time what happens is the satellite fish, because I can't control my bait in the spot I want it, I have to kind of throw it on the periphery. I get a 20-pound flathead with a 1-pound sucker stuffed in its mouth, or a gigantic bluegill that can barely eat it. And I used to let my customers take a look at my bait tank, and every single time they'd be like, "Wow, I can't wait to see what size fish eats that," because that's exciting. I got baits in there this long, that tall. And I'm like, "You're going to be surprised." And almost every time, it's a 15, 20-pound aggressive flathead that can't hold the spot. He's like, just out there like a crazed lunatic because he has to, because he can't hold those spots. Okay. So later in the season, when I'm fishing more basin hole type areas, when they've spread out, and I'm fishing sunken barges, and I'm fishing stuff that are maybe a single tree in 16, 17 foot of water, then I'm going to use bigger baits. So earlier, smaller, later in the season, bigger, then later in that season, once it starts to get cold again, back down to small baits. But that just works for me. I've seen people catch stuff on tiny baits. There's no absolutes in fishing. I've seen giant flatheads caught on freaking, little tiny fish like this. I've done it myself, little what we call potato chips. But if you can target them close enough to their head, they'll generally be pretty agreeable. The only time I have to use giant baits is when I feel it necessary to call them in. So I think they're tucked underneath a barge that's sunk in 20 foot of water, and the current's going by. If I need to call them out, they may not even know that there's even any fish there. They're just hanging out underneath the barge. But I want something loud and proud. Next. 3 minutes. And I got a lot of cleaning up to do.
Clean it up.
Oh, all this? That's what I'm talking about.
Any other questions from the audience? Tell them where they can find you on YouTube. You said YouTube a bunch.
Yeah, a bunch. I'd like to be on there more, but Epic Catfish. Just type in Epic Catfish and you'll find it. And we do all kinds of stuff, from giant blues to the more exciting promotional stuff, where it's got all the music, and then we do stuff that is really kind of scientific, and we do stuff that's really more informational. There's a lot of live shows to get on, and if anybody's got a question on anything, you can. Palmetto does them, Snake River does them, Mike does them, everybody does them. It's a beautiful resource. The people are great, and I want to say that. I don't know how many people out of here watch YouTube or go into live shows, but I think they're pretty amazing.
He also has a TikTok, so you do TikTok.
Yep, and it's Epic Catfish, just with a little dash in it, because you gotta have some sort of number or some sort of whatever. So I'm like, okay.
Well, Tim, thank you. Tim will be available at the YouTube booth, walking around. So if you have any questions, as soon as he's done, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer them. So let's give him a big round of applause. Thanks so much.
Let me say something real quick. Thank you for the applause. I'd like a big round of applause, even if I'm the only one clapping, for Steve and Kevin and everybody that's done work to make this thing happen. As a catfisherman, this is my dream thing right here. I'm very happy that Steve even asked me to do this. I'm honored that you guys even want to listen to me. It's fantastic. I'm still pinching myself. Y'all have a great day. Find what you want to find, and good luck fishing.
Next speaker will be Ray Ferguson, talking about dragging baits at 11:15. Come back and join us.
Oh, thank you.